in Italy. She was baptized in the church of San Rufino, where their home is attached to. Her family is from a wealthy family, and Claire grew up with decency, humility, and charity. These are the virtues she learned from her mother, or Tunana. In the year 1211, she saw Francis, a countryman, preaching to the people. She was attracted by Francis' example and had the intention of imitating his life. So, she secretly met with Francis to discuss her plan to respond to God's call. March 18, 1212, Palm Sunday, when Claire left their home. The friars picked her up and went to Berjungla to obey God's will. It was here when Francis cut her hair and accepted the seal for new life at Francesco's hand, and replaced her beautiful clothes with simple ones. To answer Clare was taken by Francis to the Benedictine monastery, and then she was taken to San Damiano, the first church Francis repaired. There in San Damiano lived Clare and the women who followed her. Here, Clare spent her life for 42 years until her death. Here, Francis wrote the Canticle of Creatures and asked Clare to sing it to him before his death. This song also served as a monument in Clare's life.
It's
In a short time, Claire's piety spread to many places. Many virgins followed her example in serving Christ. The married women lived a clean and dignified life. The rich women abandoned their luxurious palaces and built monasteries and considered it an honor to follow Christ and live a poor life. Some couples agreed to separate so that the men could join the Franciscan order and the women could enter the monastery. The mothers invited their young daughters to follow Christ, and the daughters invited their mothers. The brothers invited their sisters, and the aunts invited their nephews. Claire's sanctity reached the mansions of the rich, the palace of the duchess, and even the throne of queens. Those above condescended to follow her example. Women who were married to kings, rulers of nations, and rich people imitated her lifestyle in their own way and did penances. Years passed, and there were monasteries in many towns, even in the mountains too far and wide parts of the world. Although staying inside the monastery, Claire gave light to the world. And here in the Philippines, 27 monasteries have been built. Claire served as a guide, teacher, and leader to the women who followed her. As a leader, she is very happy and grateful to God for the obedience and entry of women into her community, for their choice of living in obedience to Christ and being poor. So, she advised her colleagues to continue praising God throughout their lives. Prayer was the center of Claire's and the nuns' lives. So, she continues to invite her colleagues to focus their minds, eyes, and attention, their whole lives on the Lord who loved, suffered, died, and rose again for everyone. Let us now recall the last moments in the life of Saint Claire before she left the world back to the God she served. Claire's last agony continued for several days, during which the fate of the people and bore the cross of illness in her body. In this way, she identified with Christ crucified and all those people of the world who suffer unjustly. Toward the end of July, the Lord Pope came to the monastery. The Pope immediately requested to see Claire. The sister led him to her pallet in the infirmary. There, the Pope extended his hand so that Claire might kiss it. Claire kissed the Pope's hand and said,
"May I also kiss your foot, my Lord?"
The Pope was taken aback by Claire's request because he felt humbled in her presence, but he wanted to comply with Claire's wish. He put his foot near her bed. She reverently inclined her face toward it, kissing it above and below. Claire then asked and said,
"My Lord, may I receive forgiveness of all my sins?"
Would that need of my pardon be such as yours?
Seeing that Claire was so weak, the Pope blessed her and assured her of his prayers. As he was about to leave, Claire called out to him and said,
My Lord, I beg you to look kindly at our form of life and give it your approval. I am eagerly awaiting this favor.
The Pope came close to her and whispered something to her that the sisters could not hear. Immediately, Claire seemed to be at great peace. The Pope then left. Claire joined together the reception of the Eucharist earlier in the day and the visit of the Pope, raised her eyes to God with tears in them, and said to her sisters,
Praise the Lord, my children, because today Christ has condescended to give me such a blessing that heaven and earth are not enough to compensate for it. Today I have received the Most High and have been worthy to see His vicar.
The sisters stayed around her bed, keeping vigil. Among them was Agnes, begging her sister not to depart and leave her. It must be remembered that Agnes had been away from San Damiano for 20 years, governing the monastery at Monticelli. Agnes was heartsick at the thought of being parted from Claire. Claire, sensing Agnes' pain, looked at her lovingly and said,
It is pleasing to God that I depart. But stop crying, because you will come to the Lord for a short time after me. And the Lord will console you greatly after I have left you.
On August 9, a messenger from the papal court arrived at the monastery. The fortress accepted the roll parchment from the man with great anticipation. She quickly ran to the infirmary, where light filled her face. Tears came streaming from her eyes. Besides the official document, the Pope had included a few lines in his own hand. Claire motioned to Agnes to come forward and read the document so that everyone could hear the words of approval. Agnes took the scroll and began to read. She concluded by reading the note in the top margin, which says,
So be it, for wisdoms, which are obvious to me, and to the protector of the monastery. Let it be so.
Agnes explained that the Pope used the letter S, the first letter of his baptismal name, Sinibaldo, for his sign of approval. Agnes then returned the parchment to Claire, who held on tightly to this precious document. She kissed it over and over again and rejoiced that her gospel way of life had been recognized by the Church. Death, we know, is a passage, and Claire already lived in the world to which she was passing over. As she lay on her pallet, she called for the friars to come and read the Passion. Since she herself used the Gospel of Matthew most frequently in her writings, Brother Leo shows that account. Please stand to honor the Gospel.
Hallelujah.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
From midday, darkness fell over all the land until mid-afternoon. At about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? As soon as they heard this, some of the bystanders said, he is calling Elijah. And one of them ran and took sponge and soaked it in a vinegar, and putting it on a bed, gave it to him to drink. Others said, leave him alone. Let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. Then Jesus cried out again in a loud voice and gave up his spirit. At this very moment, the curtain of the temple sanctuary was torn into two from top to bottom. The earthquake rocks were split, tombs were opened, and many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after the resurrection of Jesus, entered the holy city, and appeared to many. The captain the soldier who were guardians Jesus, having seen the earthquake and the earth and everything else that had happened, were terribly afraid and said, truly, this was God's Son. There were also many women there who watched from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had seen to his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's son. Friends, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated for a while. Okay lang kabila. Ayong gabi sa tanan. I am here not to explain the life of Saint Clare because it's already narrated from the beginning. Wala to lang natin siya taon-taon mamatay na na. Kung ito kanina pagsugod, ikulbaan kung galit ko, kaya ang mama o papa ni Saint Clare nagdala sa bata. Basig mabuhiat pa, mabisod na silang bayad ako. So, my dear friends, as I said, I am here to explain to you what is really death. As Mother of Mayan, asin mo sa akong yata to just give a short homily or homily regarding death. Anyway, Einstein, you know Einstein, right? He said that reality is merely an illusion. Ang reality that all of these are only an illusion. But truth is a controvertible reality, as we the church said. Nga ang tingkat kamatuuran, dili yun na basta-basta nimo bakak. Simple lang pag-explain ani. Dali lang kaayo ang akong nakitaan. Kaya philosophy man ni siya. So akong gihimuan o kanang explanation na dali lang kaayo nato maintindihan. Simple lang. Kaya ngayon, okay lang na ako natawagon ko nimong tambo. Pero okay lang kung ba nimo natawagon takang mako. That is the reality. And that is truth. That you cannot deny the truth. My dear friends, true to Saint Clare's life is she was chosen to leave the world and be with the Word, be with God. Mao na ang tinuod sa kinabuhi ni Clara. Ang tinuod sa iya, Clare did not merely follow Francis because she loved Francis. No, chismis na siya. Clare followed Francis because she loved Christ. Amen. Humano na ito na itong chismis na. Nadili sila pag-uyaw. Okay. Mga igsoon ni Kristo, there is what we call in the theology, the process of life. Nga kita daw tanan, all of us are angels. tuo mo. Tanawin mo matapang. Isang dagwan. Ha? Sure? Ingon daw sila, o ingon siya, that before we came into this world, we are all angels. Then, ang kanang anghel, itagaan og bisyon sa kalibutan para mahimot ang tao. Simple lang ang bisyon to bring the good news kapalo naman taana. No? That angels in the process A, then letter B, mamahimong daw tungod sa birth, di ba? Ipakatawag daw ang mga anghel para mamahimong tao, and we go for our particular missions. Whether you are a poor cleric, a priest, a Franciscan, young children of God na pwede na magmadre, no? Punta sila tanan, magmadre, mapare, dawat ng may. Then, ingon anak na para mahimong daw ng tao. A, B, then what's letter next? C. Yan alam. Okay. Next is letter tungkol sa C. D. As I said, we can deny the reality, but we have to accept that the truth is we all die. From birth, you die. Kapti rin mo katapat, makapag manan mo naman na kapti lang. Na, mamatay daw ka. That is the truth. When you, pag matao ka, kananta, mamatay. Una-unahan lang. Diba? Next to letter D is E. After you die, because you are an angel, you will go to eternal life. Then what is next to E? Huh? F. The only requirement that you will enter eternal life is faith. And precisely that is what I told you earlier. That Claire followed not really Francis. She followed Christ. Because of her faith, nga pwede siyang musunod kang Kristo sa pamaagi sa kinabuhi ni San Francisco, mao ang iyang pagtuo, iyang gipuy-an, isip kabus nga madre. Amen. Then what is next to F? Ha? Ha? A, F, G. No? She, faith to, papalo lang ito, God. Diba? Kung wala may pagtuo sa Diyos, di man yung gawato for eternal life. And next to G is H, that is heaven. Mga maayong tayo mo. No? Hindi na lang kumanong kay lubong na. Basta ang Z is 0. But I want to give point on birth, death, and in between is letter C. What is letter C? Ayaw magsama, kabalo lang ka. Ha? Ang mga tuba at tunay snap o extra rice na lang. So, wala na tayo. What is letter C to you? Christ? Pwede? Another. Guess. Ha? Cross? Ha? Kung sa maniwate, bumili o frisbee? C is from birth, and before you go to death, C is conversion. Hindi. C is a choice. Sa ganito? Choice. Because the truth is, all of us will die. But the question is, what is our choice? Claire made it in her life. Iyang gibuhat nga iyang pilingon ang Diyos. From the very beginning, if you read the biography of Saint Claire, bata pa lang siya makita ng kining bayhana sa tuhulog yun di siya. Wala pa konsepto sa iyang kinabuhi ng mga Madre siya. O mahimo siyang nun. wali na po ko, ako wali din, dito na lang ako to. No? That is the choice of Saint Clare. Ang iyang kinabuhi, from birth to death, in between, she made the choice nga ang iyang kinabuhi, iyang ihalad dito sa Diyos. Amen. My dear friends, today, this evening, we celebrate the Transitus. Passing away, o pagpanaw in Tagalog, from the world clearly express the undeniable reality of life is death. This is precisely the message of Transitus. We make choices in our life like Saint Clare. Saint Clare made her choice to die with Christ. Mauning ang Transitus nga gihatag ka nato sa atong tanan. Mga igsoon ni Kristo, Bonaventure said that the five senses as the portal through which the knowledge of all things existing in the visible world enters the soul. Ang atong mga senses, mao na ang magamit nato para mas maintindihan nato kung unsa ang kalibutan. But for Bonaventure, this prepared the sense of touch is more perfect and more spiritual than other sense because it unites most of God who is the highest spirit. That's why on the death of Clare, she embraced Sister Death. Wala siya mahadlok. Kapag kamatayan na siya, nakapit na siya, nakita naman na siya, niya totoo, mamatay na siya. No? She embraced Sister Death as the language of the Franciscan. We call death as our sister. Tanaw yung katapan, pamunta siya. Ano na ka? Dili pa. Nasa padre kayo, kabayan sa utang. Kapag kailangan kayo mga ako na negosyo, maayaw ako. But for Clare, when she knows that her death is about to come, walay duha-duha o walay lipod-lipod, iyang gidawat ang iyang kamatayon. Clare was a woman who endured long suffering with joy and serenity. One of the sources of her strength was to suffer for God and for those whom God would show her as beneficiaries of her sacrifice. Tanan, nga ang iyang kamatayon that reflects of the reality na kung siya mamatay o ikaw kung mamatay, kinahanglan ng yun ng kung gawa ko. Pero Father, we should mind. That's why Clare is teaching us this evening. Do not be afraid to die. If you make your clear choice of choosing Christ. Mga igsoon ni Kristo at the end, let us make our choice like Saint Clare of her death. She made God as her choice, not an option. Ang kamatayon isang taklaran naghagit po ka na kung tanan. Unsa ang atong pilihan. One day, like Saint Clare, we will go or we will meet our own Transitus. And hopefully, before that day, we already made our choice to be with the Lord, to live in the Lord, and to be with the Lord. In the last statement, as I read dito sa book of Franca K. which Yolanda wrote, sisters and brothers all over, we have been on the Transitus as Saint Clare. We will be like her, as her prayers on her death says, "Go forth, my soul, go forth without fear. Thou art a good guide for thy journey. Go forth, for he who created thee hath sanctified thee, and protects thee always, and loved thee with all a love tender, as that a mother to her son. Blessed be thou, Lord, for creating me. Look at the prayers of Saint Clare before she passed away. Nagpasalamat pa siya, nagipakatawag siya, o nagpasalamat pa siya, nga mubalik siya sa iya sa Diyos, sa iya kamatayan. Amen. Panay katapat, gusto na ka bumalik? Ha? Di mamantari kita na no. As I said, we come to our own Transitus just like Saint Clare. Hopefully, the life of Clare will be also our life. The in the end. From the beginning, pakya siguro tayo parehang Saint Clare na ipinag ng Diyos because of our options. But hopefully, before we end our Transitus, before we meet our sister death, hopefully, we stand our choice. Our choice to the crucified Christ. Amen.
Clare was aware of the depth of God's love, which was shown through the passion of Jesus. She and the sisters had experienced God's generosity on a daily basis through His providential care. One of the incidents that came to mind as the sisters kept vigil was that of the multiplication of bread. In these last days of Clare's life, the sisters, desiring to bring her some joy, brought bread to be shared. Clare blessed the bread, and it was broken for all to eat and experience God's love.
We are sharing in the love of the Lord. When we of His body and drink of His blood, we are sharing in the life of the Lord. This is my body, and this is my blood. He who protects me live forever. Sharing in the wonder of the Lord. We are sharing in the wonder of the Lord. When we eat of His body and drink of His blood, we are sharing in the joy of the Lord. We are sharing in the joy of the Lord.
Claire was filled with joy and was greatly comforted by them. The sisters, along with Brother Leo and Angelo, stood near Claire because they sensed that the Lord was about to call their beloved mother home. Claire looked at all of them lovingly and gave her sisters a blessing. Claire said,
I bless you in my life and after death, as much as I can, and more than I can, with all the blessings with which the Father of mercies has and will have blessed her sons and daughters in heaven and earth. May the Lord be with you always, and wherever you are, may you be with Him always.
once more, she urges her sisters to fidelity to what they have promised. And she said,
In the Lord Jesus Christ, I admonish and exhort all my sisters, both those present and those to come, to strive always to imitate the way of holy simplicity, humility, and poverty, and to preserve the integrity of our holy manner of life, as we were taught by our blessed Father Francis from the beginning of our conversion to Christ. Thus, they may always in the fragrance of a good name, both among those who are afar off and those who are near.
the sisters continued to keep watch, weeping. No one was speaking. Then, in the silence and in gentle tones, Claire said,
Go in peace. forth securely, O my blessed soul, for you have a good God for your journey. Go forth, for he who created you and sanctified you has loved you with a tender love, as a mother loves her son. May you be blessed, O Lord, who have created me.
Toward dawn on Monday, August 11, Claire's breathing grew slower and lighter. Claire's lips were moving, and as Sister Agnes bent close, she heard her murmuring the words of the next stop, and Claire said, "Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his faithful ones." The hand of the Lord came upon another sister, and through her tears she saw a great multitude of white-robed virgins with crowns on their heads, who came entering by the door into the room where Claire was lying. Among these virgins, there was one unspeakably greater than the others, and beyond all words, more beautiful. The virgins brought Claire a most beautiful mantle, with which they covered her, while some of them decorated her bed. Claire, having completed her earthly pilgrimage, breathed her last. And so, Claire died surrounded by her sisters and the first companions of Saint Francis. Blessed was the going forth from the valley of misery, which was for her the entry into a blessed life. And now, in place of her poor fare on earth, she rejoices at the table of the citizens of heaven. And for her mean attire, she is clothed in the bliss of the heavenly kingdom with a robe of eternal glory. It could be said that Claire's life, with its twists, losses, and struggles, is the planted seed that with the movement of time and the workings of spirit became what was its destiny, a flower in bloom. And at the end of her life journey, God crowned her days with a picture of whom He had made her to be, a perfect flower. Let us now listen to the reading of the Papal Bull. Therefore, let Mother Church rejoice, because she had begotten and reared such a daughter who, as a parent fruitful and virtuous, has produced many daughters. For religious life, by her example,